I guess to a certain degree, sensing, you know, people when you're acting with them and sensing the energies they're bringing and feeding off people, it can actually, in my opinion, actually be quite hard. Like acting being so much about listening and sort of going off what somebody else is bringing, because sometimes it's so easy to be in your head. Okay, what am I doing? What am I trying to do here? And okay, my line's coming in now, and it's time for my line. And I think what comedy gave me most of all, and then the later training that I did, as you say, at Oscar School of Drama, was the ability to really kind of hone in on the energies that other people are bringing, and follow certain instincts and stuff like that. I think a lot of acting is obviously throwing caution to the wind and trusting yourself to kind of look ridiculous or risk looking ridiculous or risk making mistakes, you know. And I think, you know, comedy in that, it kind of really steels you for trying to throw caution to the wind sometimes and follow people's energies and follow your kind of instincts. So yeah, so I'd say it was all pretty helpful.
I want to know who on this Zoom is meeting each other for the first time. Richard and Matt, I feel like you two don't know each other.
We don't. It was so nice to just catch up for the first time and express my fandom.
Yeah, likewise. We spoke about our shared love for Texas, of course, sort of. When I went there as a Boy Scout, but I won't take us down that tangent at this point. But yeah, but no, I've met Tom. I've actually gone past Andrew on a Lime bike, but that's it. We
Right.
once, I think we shared a nod once on a Lime bike, kind of past each other like, yeah, fellow actors.
We were
It
both
was a
on
good
Lime
moment. Yeah, yeah. It was going through Soho. It was going through Soho. We were going through Soho on a Lime bike.
That's a digression also.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I'll pause that tangent there as well. But yeah,
That's
but that's
another time.
what a time.
Here
What a
you don't
time.
know.
Let's go down that road. That sounds way more fun than whatever we're going to.
Electric bike, what's not to love?
Yeah.
Lime green,
Yeah, biking in Soho.
right?
John, have you met Richard Gadd before?
I have not met Richard. I have met Andrew. I believe Tom and I have crossed paths at some point.
Yeah, we have. We met at a New Year's Eve party.
Sounds like something I will never remember.
And
Yeah, 2018-19, I think.
Gorgeous.
and Matt and John, you guys are veterans of several.
As the representatives of the colonies in the group here, we feel like, yes, we've known each other since grade school, pretty much. That's
Pretty much. And I am finally coming to New York, and I'm going to take you up on hanging out when I get
Let's
there.
do it. Absolutely. Extended invitation to all the people on this call, by the way, including you, Dave.
Can I bring my Lime bike?
Yes, we have. There's called city bikes, and
City bike.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I even went back and found, John and Matt, one of these roundtables that you did around the time of, I think it was White Collar and Mad Men. So you guys have been on this kind of roundtable circuit. Are those, I mean, it's kind of meta to be asking you about a roundtable during a roundtable, but I'm going to do it. Do you find that these things are helpful in learning about other actors' processes and the way that they've gone about their careers, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on what direction the conversation goes in sometimes, but it's so nice just to get to speak with other actors. It's rare that we actually take the time to sit down and have conversations like this. So that's always nice. And there are other little idiosyncrasies that I've heard from other actors that kind of made me feel seen in a way that I hadn't before, in different regards to how they behave on a set to what their acting process is like. So I think there are really great things about it. Obviously, it's not like a natural hang per se, but there are also it's just great to also meet people who I've loved and admired and respected their work for so long.
John, how about you?
Yeah, I'll say this, a version of the same thing. It's always, anytime anybody gets into this rare air, you look around and you think, oh, well, I'm happy to be included in this crowd for sure. That's a very nice feeling. Mostly for what Matt said, you look at the work and you go, man, I like what you do. And apparently somebody thinks that what I do is okay too. So that's pretty nice company to keep. And yeah, I think we're living in a time of unbelievable content for want of a better word, although that word is a bummer. But from what Richard's done, to everybody else on this call, you think that it's such a varied landscape. Whereas if we were having this call 20 years ago, it would have looked like the five guys on Law and Order or something, and it's just a very different way to appreciate what we get to do. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm always happy to like listen to everybody else's thing. Because like Matt said, it's kind of like, oh, I'm not super weird. At least four other people are kind of like me.
There's the great line when Vanny won her Academy Award. She got up there and she said, "I did it all by myself." And of course, we all know nothing could be further from the truth. I would love to ask the five of you, when you think to the particular project that you're nominated for in this category, Jon, because you have 2 acting nominations, and several of you have several nominations this year. When you think about this category, this show, who is the one person that kind of comes to mind, whether it's a coach or a co-star or a crew member, who was kind of most integral to you being able to do what you were able to do and do it well? So Richard, if I were to ask you that question, who kind of comes to mind?
Yeah, I don't think I can not really say anyone other than Jess Gunning, really, for that. I mean, she's kind of flawless. It's like acting's such a funny thing. I haven't been on the other side of the table and then having written something for other people to act, like Baby Reindeer. It was almost like you write something on the page and you sort of see it a certain way, how someone should do it. And it was like she did it exactly how it was in my head when I wrote the script. And, just from a sort of purely performance point of view, I just thought, acting opposite her, she just brought so much nuance, so much, I don't know, layers and commitment and all these things, and just general positivity and good vibes and all these kinds of things that she's kind of known for, that it's just so easy when you're working with that to try and elevate yourself and to act off it, So yeah, she was just such an amazing co-star, and I think the show is so dependent on Martha and her ability to be scary and, sweet, but also vulnerable, but also nasty and all these kinds of things. And yeah, I've got to give props to her. I think it's a phenomenal performance. And I think as a result, she really elevated me and, and and forced me to kind of bring it as well. So I've got to say Jess Gunning for that for sure.
Tom, how about the same question for you?
Well, there were so many people that I feel very grateful to for the experience that I had on Feud. So I don't want to single one person out. I mean, Naomi Watts was incredibly emotionally stabilizing because she was so kind as a friend, and the friendship in the show. She was very, very open and sweet about kind of fostering a real friendship, which became a real friendship, and it started as a acting sort of exercise and ended up as a real relationship, which is a kind of thing that happens, as we all know. And my voice coach, Jerome Butler, was absolutely like a brother on it. I wouldn't have got it without the determination of the casting director, Alexa Fogel. So I go on and on listing people that I felt. Jackie Risotto, who did my makeup every morning, 4:30 month after month, all these people. It was, yeah. I mean, I it's definitely takes a village. The expression is it takes a village, isn't it? Yeah. To be a child, but it definitely takes a village to give a performance sometimes.
Andrew, same question to you.
Yeah, I think it's for me it was the other actors. The character that I played was a lot of the time I was acting on my own, which was a really weird experience because I don't really like it, to be honest. We shot it during the pandemic, and we were away in Italy, and people couldn't come and visit, and I couldn't get back. And when you're acting on your own, and sometimes acting a lot in a different language, was kind of hard. So when the other actors came on, Dakota Fanning and Johnny Flynn particularly, it was amazing. And actually, one person that I think was incredibly helpful, we had a cast assistant, and her name was, and still is, her name is Elisa Sophie. And those people who kind of look after, when you're on a set for like 13 hours a day, it's very all consuming, particularly in this part. And so the person sort of helps you manage all the other parts of your life, and keeping that afloat and helps you with those things. You really do become so bonded. And Eliza was amazing because she was just a brilliant. She was the person that I kind of hung out with the most, and she's has ambitions to become a producer herself, and she was just amazing. Yeah.
How about you?
I mean, I would obviously have to say Jonathan Bailey comes to mind immediately. He just is a phenomenal actor. We were so lucky that he wanted to be a part of Fellow Travelers, and I think I did 96 out of 100 days on this shooting, and there are times when you're just tired and you're trying to grind it out, and he made me better every day. I think sometimes when I get worn down like that, I'm only as good as the people I'm in the scene with. And Jonathan, he really made choices and gave things to me, even when it was his off camera, that really brought me into the moment and gave me things to react to and respond to. And obviously we had an incredible amount of intimacy work that we had to do. So having a partner that I could trust and go out on a limb with just meant a great deal to me. And I think we'll probably be close friends for life after working on this. And I also have to say Ron Nicewaner, because I think he's been with this project over 10 years, because I've been with it for 4, and he was there long before I was. So it was really his love and dedication and commitment to this story that pushed it into production in the first place. And he was there every single take of every single scene I did. And while he wasn't super prescriptive or anything, I would have done anything he wanted me to do in a scene, because if a creator shows that kind of commitment to their story, like I'm in, whatever you want.
John, same question to you.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see where Matt's coming from with that, and I would say Noah Hawley. It's the third time I've worked with him, and he kind of had me in mind, I think, for this from the beginning. And his statement at the top was, if we do this right, there's going to be a lot of people who actually like this horrible person, and that I think is unfortunate given our current political climate. But I think a lot of people aren't so mad at Roy. I think he's got some good ideas. But I would also say, to a little bit of what Andrew was saying, being in Canada, in Calgary, or to be fair, in Stavely, which is about an hour outside of Calgary, for October to March, is a real lonely experience. And it was in the months leading up to me getting married too. So I was all by myself, and that informs a lot of kind of how you feel day to day going into set. And especially when you're playing a guy who sort of solitude is a big pillar of his existence. So thanks, Canada, for being a little bit bleak during the winter. Yeah.
It's collaborative. I like that. Richard, in these group conversations that I've done over the years, obviously the topic of training comes up, and you have a really interesting background where you did spend time at the Oxford School of Drama, but then you've also spent so much time on live stages in these forms. When you think back to these different types of experience that you've had, does that combination of those different things lead you in your mind to what you were able to do with something like Baby Reindeer, or was one more helpful than the other?
It's a good question. I think while starting out in comedy, I think like and doing sort of, I'm not sure you call it stand up, but doing whatever that was that I did back in the day, kind of, putting that in front of some of the roughest sort of Scottish crowds going, it does kind of steel you and, make you kind of, you have to adapt so much on a comedy stage, like instantaneously. Like if they're not going for you, you need to really reverse and, turn left. Otherwise, you're in for a very rough evening. I mean, I've had sets, 20 minutes, you have to do your time. That's the whole thing about being a comedian. And, 20 minutes, you can hear a pin drop. So it makes you very instinctual, kind of picking up on kind of energies and shifting towards energies. Or if you hear a giggle at the back of the room, okay, why is that person laughing? How can I feed into that and all that kind of stuff? And I guess to a certain degree, sensing, people when you're acting with them and sensing the energies they're bringing and feeding off people, it can actually, in my opinion, actually be quite hard. Like acting being so much about listening and sort of going off what somebody else is bringing, because sometimes it's so easy to be in your head. Okay, what am I doing? What am I trying to do here? And okay, my line's coming in now and it's time for my line. And I think what comedy gave me most of all, and then the later training that I did, as you say, at Oscar School of Drama, was the ability to really kind of hone in on the energies that other people are bringing and follow certain instincts and stuff like that. I think a lot of acting is obviously throwing caution to the wind and trusting yourself to kind of look ridiculous or risk looking ridiculous or risk making mistakes, and I think comedy in that, it kind of really steels you for trying to throw caution to the wind sometimes and follow people's energies and follow your kind of instincts. So yeah, so I'd say it was all pretty helpful.
Andrew, you and I have spoken about this project Ripley before, and one of the things we've talked about is this fascinating dichotomy, and you kind of alluded to this, between the scenes that you had to do where you were essentially playing this cat and mouse with whoever was interrogating you at the moment, whether it was an investigator or someone like Elliot Sumner or Dakota Fanning. And then these other sequences where you were having to do everything with no dialogue whatsoever. What did the two sides of this performance bring to the table as far as like a unique challenge for you on this?
Well, Steve Zalian, he wrote an incredibly sort of beguiling script, in the sense that the screen directions were so beautifully written. They really were. There were sometimes just pages if there's no dialogue. There was just you read it like almost you were reading the Patricia Highsmith novel. So it was a really good map in the sense of what the character might be sort of going through. And it was actually a great pleasure to act with no dialogue, because all you're really required then to do is just be as alive as you can on the day, and just so I always find it really interesting looking at characters just thinking, not necessarily feeling, so to speak. I mean, of course there's a bit of feeling there as well, but watching characters just be and watching them work something out or watching them make mistakes was actually a really wonderful thing. And maybe we don't get to do that as much, because a lot of drama is very dialogue centered, and then the other scenes were just he writes very sparsely. I think it's very difficult to make a great movie out of a sort of, or a great TV series out of a mediocre script. So the scripts were very spare, even the dialogue. There were no great sort of grandstanding speeches or anything like that, but they were very witty and precise, and it was just a great pleasure to play the kind of domesticity of this person who's a kind of an iconic literary character, but to try and understand what he would be like just walking down or going to see a gallery or just being on his own. And but the murders were only took 2 or 3 weeks to film out of a whole year of filming. So yeah, it was a strangely, I was very, very connected to the character, apart from the murder.
I mean, we're coming up on 10 months since Traveler premiered on Showtime. I mean, I think we're going to get to the point, if we haven't already, where you've been talking about this show post-release longer than you spent, actually working on it. Your stamina is outrageous talking about this show. But when you think about the impact that it's had on people and what people have said to you, I can only imagine. What sticks out? Is it a kind of a cumulative effect of what people at large have said to you and how it affected them? Or are there specific things that people have said that have really resonated and stuck with you?
Well, I won't go too far into sharing people's personal stories per se, but it's been really amazing to hear from people all over the human landscape and how it resonated with them, whether they had a cousin who was like a specific character or a dad who was like a hawk, or a mom who was a Lucy or a cousin who was a Tim. And it's just, thankfully, it's been a great joy to talk about the project as long as I have, because the material sustains those kinds of conversations. It'd be hard to talk about something that didn't that long. But I just think the fact that folks have seen their own humanity reflected in it, regardless of whether they're a part of the LGBTQ community or not, has been really profoundly impactful. And it's not just like a high on the street. People want to stop and really engage, and there have been tears and all, it's been kind of all over the map. So I don't know, I guess as an actor, that's always what I had kind of hoped for, is that in whatever way, whatever I was a part of would resonate with people, or that they'd see their humanity reflected in it somehow. And so that's honestly been my favorite part of the experience of the show.
Jon, Fargo is such an interesting production because all of the seasons are of a similar world, and yet they are standalone. For you, who have come at different series from so many different ways, originating roles from day one, coming in a little bit later, how did this one differ as far as it's kind of a hybrid, right? And it's a new role, but an existing world. Was that something that entered into the equation as far as the doing of it or the preparing of it?
Yeah, for sure. You wanted, I like most people thought when Fargo, the show, debuted, I thought, what a terrible idea this is, because they're going to ruin this amazing, beautiful film. And I was angry until I watched it, and I thought, oh my God, they cracked the code. This guy really made this thing of a piece with the film, somehow capturing the tone of it, and yet kind of split off on this impressive tangent. And now 5 seasons in has only made it deeper and more rich, the environment. So it was, first of all, like most of us, I would imagine, the overriding thought as soon as you step on a stage on day one is, please don't let me fuck this up. I don't want to be the weak link. I don't want to be the one who goes, well, it was great until this guy showed up, and then the show jumped the shark or took a turn or whatever it happened to be. So there was that for sure. But also it's the opportunity to really kind of break this thing into a wider angle of what the storytelling can be for this particular universe, to overuse a phrase that gets but I've appreciated the challenge. I very much loved being, because I loved the show. I love the big swings it takes, and I love the fact that we got a chance to make something that looks a little bit too relevant to right now, although it's meant to take place in the recent past. It was a tremendous challenge and a fun opportunity, and I loved it.
Tom, from what I can tell, it seems like you really relished the transformation aspect of playing Truman Capote. And I mean, just as you were, telling us about all the different people who were helping you, have you ever done anything that's on this scale? Where does this rank for you as far as the amount of transforming physically that you had to do for a part?
No, I think, yeah, probably the most. Yeah, the biggest. I think yes. I think I can't think of another one. But I mean, in every respect, it was a lot of the most fulfilling. There were a lot of categories that it ticks. For me, it's the most wonderful experience, every bit of it. I felt very lucky to be doing it. I was like Jon, I was very nervous at the beginning. I thought, don't get fired for a couple of months, the month before we started, in the first at least 2 weeks. And then became confident that I wasn't going to get fired because we'd been shooting too long and it would be impossible. And then I honestly loved it, and that I've loved talking about it, and the fact that people liked it, and now it's been nominated in so many categories. It's been a joyous experience, and not all. I mean, being an actor is, it's a long old roller coaster of a thing, and there are some. But when the sweetest moments are very sweet, and for me, this has been one of them. So I'm delighted about every aspect of it. But certainly, I haven't had I had never got as I got quite big for it. That took a long time to. I'd done that before when I was younger, but no one saw that particularly, that one, and I didn't, and I wasn't as big as for this, and it took a long time to lose it, even though I kind of didn't want to because I missed it. I missed being able to be in the physical realm that Truman was in, because it's, I don't know, because there's something about the ugliness of it, of where he'd got to, was I found relaxing. The obviously as an actor, a lot of the time you need to make the best of yourself, for just to sustain your kind of employment prospects. But here was one where I could sort of sink into degradation in a way that was found relaxing, but not sustainable. Stop talking. There's a voice in my head saying stop talking. So I'm obeying it.
Talk as long as you want. What you guys are doing great.
No.
I mean, here I'm sitting looking at the five of you on the screen, and for my money, this is the most impressive Emmy category of the year. I mean, for the reasons that Jon, you were talking about, I think that this subgenre of TV is doing things that are so interesting, and the five of you are just so remarkable. The career that you all have chosen is one of such ups and downs. I'm looking at the five of you, you're at different points in your careers and journeys right now. But I would be so curious to know for each of you, Matt, I want to start with you. When you think about a break, maybe earlier on in your career that you remember now as being very important, whether it was one that was kind of brought to you or given to you, or one that you helped make yourself, what sticks out in your mind as like a seminal turning point where things started going in a good direction for you?
Oh, wow. It's such a chain, honestly. And even when things seem to go wrong, it led to something not necessarily better, but something different in the end. And I'm so grateful that I tend to work with a lot of the same people over and over again. So I'm gracious that they give me opportunities, and that's been a huge benefit in my career. But honestly, I feel like Fellow Travelers, just being what it was such a break, just because I feel like even 10 years ago, I never would have even seen the script for that show. I wouldn't have had any kind of opportunity to play the role I got to play. So the fact that we're there was just, that has nothing to do with me. It's just society and where we're going and everything, and the zeitgeist. But I think that in and of itself was a huge break and a huge opportunity that I'm immensely grateful for.
I mean, Jon, full disclosure, I've known you for 20 years now. I vividly remember sitting at lunch with you with our mutual friends and you telling us, oh, I just filmed this pilot. We'll see if anything comes of it. And it was Mad Men. And like all of a sudden you longer hair, but all of a sudden you had short hair. And I was like, oh, Jon Hamm looks so different. I mean, but what a fascinating road it's been for you. I mean, I don't want to answer the question for you, but obviously that must have been a humongous turning point.
Yeah, that was sort of a tectonic shift for sure, in my career. But if I'm thinking about, I got to LA in 94, 95, around there, and proceeded to get an agent fairly quickly, but also not work for about 3 straight years, to the point where I lost the agent that I got and really had to kind of reboot everything. And it wasn't like I wasn't auditioning. It wasn't like I wasn't getting close on parts. I would just get all the way to the end, and the other guy would get it. And the other guy was Jon Favreau. The other guy was Heath Ledger. The other guy was David Boreanaz. Fill in the blank of late 90s people who worked, and I probably lost a part to one of them, for whatever reason. So if I'm thinking about like what really the thing was, that where the tipping point actually happened, it was probably I got cast on a very lovely NBC Friday night family drama called Providence, starring Mike Farrell from MASH, and Melina Kanakarit is currently one of the CSIs, I think. And I was brought in as a guest star for one episode, and it was my first real thing where I had more than a line. And we shot for one day. I shot all my stuff in one day, and Melanie Mayron directed it, who I knew from 30 something, and she was so kind and knew clearly, because I looked like a deer in the headlights, I'm sure. And they ended up bringing me back for I think like 13 or 14 episodes the following season. And that changed my life. I could pay my bills. I could pay my car insurance. I could, have a piece of tape for somebody to see, which I know seems very weird now that you can just put yourself on your phone and tape a scene if you want. That was a lot harder to do back in the 90s. So that was it for me. And I really kind of never looked back. That was in 98, I want to say. And that led to this and led to that and led to, a couple other things. As Matt was saying, was the beginning of kind of a chain. But it takes the first link really to start it. Otherwise there's no traction. So that was really what it was. And I've met Melanie on a couple more occasions over the past 30 years. And I've always said to her, like, God, you were so nice. Like, you never forget the people who are horrible to you, but you also really never forget the people who are just plain kind. And she was one of those for me.
I love that. Andrew, how about you? What sticks out? Is it a moment on the stage or a moment of something filmed?
Yeah, I think it's the stage really. I was very lucky when I was only about 18 or 19 and I joined the Abbey Theatre, our national theatre in Ireland, and I got some really good parts really when I was really tiny. I'm sure the other actors like, what the fuck, who's this little? But anyway, but I feel like I feel very grateful for that because it was a lot of new writing. And then when I moved to London, I worked a lot at the Royal Court Theatre, which is a new writing theatre. And what was really helpful about that is it gave me an appreciation of writing. I think the writer really is the actor's ally. Sometimes I think even more so than the director, because those work. It gave me a real appreciation for what you can do with a good script and that good writing. And I suppose it's sort of I became more discerning about what a good script is, and I think that's a handy tool to have as a writer, because sometimes you can get things that look it might be attached to a great studio, or it might be a good story, but the actual music of the script is actually kind of quite weak. And I think for an actor, that's the thing that we play with. You go, God, I just want to be able to say that line, or that's incredibly funny, or that's very moving. And if I always describe it as a kind of an autograph. If a script doesn't have a very singular kind of autograph, then I think it lacks something. And I think I learned that very early on from being in the theatre, where the writer is really at the center of the art form. So yeah, I feel that gave me something, whether that made that, sometimes you just don't have a choice. If you're not working, you just choose to be in the thing that's terrible. But at least you have a sense of going, okay, well, I have my own opinion of what this is. Yeah.
Tom, how would you answer the same question?
Yeah, I mean, everything that everyone's saying is echoes of and it definitely a chain. It's also a lifelong game of snakes and ladders, I find. And every time, I've learned to try to just enjoy each one for its own sake, and not try and construct some sort of logic to it, because there hasn't been one. But I've had amazing experiences. There was no single moment where I don't feel there was a single moment where suddenly everything changed. It was sort of so that's why the chain analogy is really good. But there have definitely been moments, soaring moments, and where, as Jon was saying, where someone takes a risk on you. And has faith those moments are very special. When someone, I always think that expression, having a break, when an actor gets a break, and I always think the break means when someone kind of sees something in you that no one. Most of the time, you're offered a reflection of what you've done before. Someone offers you something similar to the last thing that you did, or something that and every so often somebody does something, asks you to be something else that they can see that you can't even see yourself necessarily. And those are the moments where things change and you suddenly grow as a creative person. This one for me has been one of those. Ryan Murphy has made me took a risk on me, and I will be forever grateful for that. I will also be forever grateful to a theatre director called Declan Donlan, who cast me in 1995 in a. I mean, there are lots over the dim and distant past, but and you know, the first person at school who encouraged me to audition for a school play because they thought I was the right size and shape for a part. But all of those moments, I like it when someone else goes, "You should do this." I've never been very good at listing the parts that I want to play and then going, "I need to play this because I find it I can't ever believe it." But I love it when someone else goes, "You should be doing this," and I go, "Okay."
Well, Richard, from your point of view, Richard, was there a moment where you kind of made a decision that you wanted or needed to create an opportunity for yourself?
Yeah, I think so. I think I owe everything that I have right now in my life to the Edinburgh Festival, the Edinburgh Fringe. I'd taken so many shows there. I went there 10 years in a row from 2009 to 2019, and 2019 was Baby Reindeer, the play. But I think like I felt a sort of breakthrough, shall we say, or a time where the industry, for lack of a better word, kind of paid a bit more attention, and I started to, well, become full-time and get opportunities. Was when I did a show called Monkey See, Monkey Do. And that was a show, it was a live show, and it was it kind of covered what happens in episode 4 of Baby Reindeer. I won't take us down too dark a route, but it was me confronting my sort of sexual abuse and all the stuff that I went through when I was younger. And before that, I'd always gone up to the Edinburgh Fringe and sort of mucked around with props and done these kind of quite mad shows that didn't really have any sort of deeper meaning. That you know, props, kind of the stuff you see in you know, Baby Reindeer, the kind of silly props and the kind of anti-humor and all that kind of stuff. But my life had become trapped in this kind of crazy juxtaposition where I feel like my life was falling apart. I wasn't getting anywhere in my career, and I was dealing with this kind of post-traumatic stress, and I hadn't really told anyone, you know, about what I'd been through. But it was, apart from people who were really close to me, and it just created this sort of unbelievable burden. And I remember I had a choice that year whether to sort of confront it and stop running from it, or take a considerable bunch of time off and maybe leave altogether. And, you know, because I was literally still working in a bar at that point. But I decided to you know, throw all my chips on black, or whatever the phrase is, and go up to Edinburgh and do a show that kind of confronted it. And I was throwing up in sort of paper bags in service stations on the way up, you know, like, because I was like, what am I doing here? You know, this was all kind of pre-Me Too, and, you know, it wasn't kind of in the public consciousness, these kinds of things. And, you know, as a man as well, and, you know, it kind of wasn't spoken about. And so I kind of had these moments like, what are you doing? I mean, my family were like, what are you doing? And friends were kind of like, this is kind of crazy. So, you know, but then lo and behold, it kind of just became this huge show, and it just kind of changed my life overnight. And I went up there thinking it was going to be like, give me a mental breakdown. And then it just became this loved show, and it won the Edinburgh Comedy Award, which was like, you know, it was a real big deal for me at the time. And then off the back of that, I think because of the serious undertones to that kind of show, I think people started to see me for serious work. And I'd always been seen prior to that, if I was lucky enough to get the odd sporadic edition, like 1 or 2 a year, it would be for really quite sort of comedy sitcom kind of stuff. But I always felt I dealt much better with the kind of serious stuff. So off the back of that, I got an audition for a show called Against the Law, which was which was a film, and it opened the BFI Flair Festival that year, which was a real proud moment for me. And I played a young soldier, 1950s. It was the story of, you know, how homosexual activity was legalized in Britain, and it was this big serious role, and it was amazing. And Jenny Duffy, the casting director, came to see that live show and thought I'd be good for the role. And then from that point forward, I was pretty much full time. So it's crazy. I do sometimes think of the other avenue I could have gone, where I just was like, right, I need to sort of commit to sort of getting better. But it proved, you know, that kind of old adage of facing your fears kind of thing. And, you know, things will fall into place. So yeah, that was, I kind of owe that show, like Monkey See, Monkey Do, and that Edinburgh Fringe 2016 at everything, for sure.
I thought you were going to say I owe everything to myself.
No, but I hope it didn't sound that way.
I was like,
Making me worried.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got time for two last questions. Matt and Andrew, this one's for you. It was so fun when all of us strangers and fellow travelers, you guys were on your press tour, and like Matt, you and Jonathan, and Andrew, you and Paul like bumped into each other, and the four of you took a picture, and the gay world exploded. And it was so fun. And then the nominees for this category come out, and four of the five characters that are in this category are LGBTQ plus men. And Tillman has nipple rings, so I'm going to call him an honorary gay.
Adjacent.
But Matt and Andrew,
Curious.
he is curious. You'll revisit that the next time you play him, and that'll make us happy.
In jail, who knows?
Exactly.
Andrew and Matt, I'd just be curious did that register to you when you were looking at these five? Okay, maybe not John, but the other four characters that you all play. Was that like, hey, this is pretty cool? Because for some characters, it's very tangential and not important at all. For some, it's like very central to their being. What was your reaction to kind of this grouping and all of these different characters?
Andrew, I'll let you kick this one off.
I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. Does that mean that I would hope that is every year? Not necessarily. I think that it's wonderful that it's incidental. But I suppose one of the things that I would be cautious about is I don't think anybody ever. Well, I suppose in relation to the characters, it's different than the actors. I suppose there can be sometimes when we're talking about characters and we're talking about actors, there can be a sort of prurience or even a sort of hysteria about people's sexuality. And I hope that we're moving towards a place where it's there's a kind of more fluid place where I think the last thing any actor really wants to be is to sort of what's the word, to trade on their own sexuality. I think that's kind of what you actually don't want to do. So, speaking as somebody who's a gay actor playing a sort of a non-heterosexual character, I wouldn't want to. I feel what do I mean? I just feel like that it's really important that to play these characters have a certain kind of sexuality, but they also have an enormous amount of other attributes. And I think you don't really play gay. It's impossible to do that because it's not something that we cultivate necessarily. It's not a talent any more than being straight is. So yes, it's interesting. But what's more interesting to me are the stories. These are extraordinary stories, and they're all gay. Or a lot of four of them are characters, but they're enormous. They may have similar sexualities, but I'm not sure. That I think the stories is what's interesting, and I just wonder if it was if there were four straight characters, if we would be even talking about the sexuality of the characters. So yes, I welcome it, but I'm not sure it's the thing that any of us necessarily would feel that that's the thing that we would be most proud of, if that makes sense. So it's sort of yes and no for me. I don't know what you think, Matt.
I'm with you. I mean, honestly, it had to be pointed out to me that was the category. All I thought that I was just so grateful to be included with all these actors who I admire so much and whose work I love. And honestly, when I was thinking about Hawk, I feel like his sexuality is like the 10th most interesting thing about him. It really is a story. But it goes back to, Tom put it so beautifully. I mean, Ryan Murphy gave me a huge opportunity as well and saw something in me that I didn't see in myself when he cast me in Normal Heart. But that was really kind of groundbreaking at that time to actually cast a gay actor in a gay role. So I'm as I was saying earlier, I'm just grateful that I got the opportunity to play a really nuanced, rich character, which I might not have had in the past. But I'm not draconian. I come from the theater, as pretty much all these guys do as well, about who should do what or anything like that. I'm just grateful that I got to play had the opportunity to play a really nuanced character.
I cannot thank all five of you enough for sharing your time with us, and just on behalf of everyone at the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, this is just so meaningful to hear from you all. And And I stand true in my conviction. This is the most incredible, impressive group of actors in any category this year. Fight me. To all of you, Tom Hollander, Jon Hamm, Andrew Scott, Matt Bomer, Richard Gadd, what an absolute pleasure. And just enjoy what you've done. Good on you.
Thanks.
Great to
Thanks
see
for
everybody.
having me.
Can't wait to see you all.